If you've never seen a grown man in pajama pants, bunny slippers, and a bathrobe standing on a tractor yelling, "Return to sender," while hauling a 1,000-pound concrete block, let me tell you, you haven't truly lived. And if that man happens to be me, well, buckle up, because this war with the HOA didn't just start with a feud. It started with sabotage. I remember waking up one ordinary morning, the sun peeking through the blinds, birds chirping a song only they could name, and Duke, my old dog, barking at squirrels like it was a paid position. I shuffled outside, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, barely awake, when I stopped dead in my tracks. My driveway, my beautiful gravel driveway, was gone. Not literally missing, but it was effectively barricaded, 3 massive concrete barriers planted across it like the world's worst welcome mat. Confusion twisted in my stomach as I approached the gray monstrosities, which looked like they belonged at a military base rather than my peaceful home in Timber Ridge. I thought it might have been some road work gone awry. But no, there was a smug little paper taped to one of them. A violation notice from the HOA, signed in curly self-important handwriting by none other than Alex Green, the notorious queen of the cul-de-sac. The violation stated I had committed aesthetic misconduct by parking my vintage 1958 Farmall tractor too close to the road, 50 feet, to be exact. My tractor, partially visible behind a row of bushes and a tree I personally planted 15 years ago, was declared a visual blight. Never mind that I've lived here longer than the HOA has existed. Never mind that my beloved tractor was fully operational, possibly more valuable than half the houses in the neighborhood. I stood there, coffee growing cold in my hand, as the absurdity of the situation hit me. This wasn't just pettiness, it was deeply personal. Alex and I had had run-ins before. She always had her sights set on my aesthetic violations ever since I refused to attend her mandatory community soirees and voted against her pet project plan to curb unsightly lawn decorations. As I drove around the block to try to get back inside, I spotted her standing at the edge of her pristine driveway, arms crossed, a smug smile plastered on her face. It was a wave that felt like a slap to my pride. In that moment, disbelief morphed into something more, an itch for justice. Not the kind served up by lawyers or HOA appeal boards, but the slow, patient, hands-dirty kind you cook up with a friend over beer and barbecue. That night, I called up Jeb, my high school buddy, a dairy farmer with a talent for mischief and a penchant for bending the rules. After I laid out my situation, he didn't laugh. He grinned. "You got a tractor, Tommy," he said, smirking. "And concrete don't float." Before I knew it, we were plotting a plan buried under a mountain of donuts, fueled by the thrill of rebellion. Our mission, to deliver that barrier back to its rightful owners, not with a moving crew or an apology, but with the very vehicle they tried to banish from the neighborhood. I spent the next day tuning up that trusty old Farmall, greasing the chains and checking the tires. I even wiped a layer of dust off the hood because if she was going to be the star of our revenge show, she had to look impressive while doing it. As I worked, neighbors swung by, some walking their dogs, some pretending to walk their dogs. Their eyes glimmered with curiosity. What was I planning? I just smiled and told them I was returning something that didn't belong to me. That evening, as twilight fell, I set to work wrapping a tow chain around one of the concrete blocks, the scrape and groan of concrete gritty against metal. The old tractor didn't flinch. She was ready. I took the long route through the neighborhood, V-shaped headlights cutting through the dusk, engine rumbling like thunder. As I rolled down the main road, porch lights flicked on like stars coming to life. Faces peeked out from behind curtains, some of them wide-eyed, others smirking with approval at my odd parade. I reached the HOA office, a tiny converted dentist's office nestled between a yoga studio and a frozen yogurt shop. I backed the tractor up, unhooked the chain, and gently nudged the concrete block against the glass doors, not enough to break them, but definitely enough to deter entry for the morning's first visitors. Taping a little note to the side, "Property returned. Next time, send a receipt." I'd delivered my first act of vengeance, right where it hurt. But as the sun rose the next morning, I sat with bated breath. I had no idea how Alex would respond, but given her character, I would have guessed it wouldn't be gracious. This was just the start of something much bigger than a mere tractor haul. It was time to dismantle her little empire, one concrete block at a time. As the sun rose the next morning, I sat with bated breath, wondering how Alex would respond to my first act of defiance. Would she storm over, arms flailing like a windmill caught in a gale? Or would she retaliate in the shadows, plotting revenge like some sinister chess player? Whatever the outcome, I knew I couldn't back down now. I had drawn a line in the sand, and I was ready for the battle to escalate. Just as I poured my second cup of coffee, my phone buzzed with a text from Jeb. "Turn on the news." Confused, I flipped on the television and waited impatiently for the local morning broadcast. There she was, Alex, standing outside the HOA office, wide-eyed and red-faced, giving a statement to a local news crew. It almost felt surreal, watching her squirm in front of the cameras while trying to maintain her usual air of superiority. "This is harassment," she blurted, visibly fuming. "It's completely illegal." The reporter, cool and collected, leaned in and said, "But the concrete barriers placed in front of Mr. Thomas's driveway were done without a proper permit, according to county records. Does it not raise any red flags?" As I watched, a smirk crept across my face. It was a satisfying sight. Alex trapped in her own web of rules, her grip on the HOA unraveling right before my eyes. But still, I knew this was just the opening move, and she wouldn't give up that easily. Beneath her sophisticated exterior lay a fierce resolve that had crushed many a neighbor's spirits. I could feel the air crackling with tension as the conflict began to escalate. Later that afternoon, I received an unexpected knock on the door. It was Greg, the quiet guy from the HOA board who had always merged into the background during Alex's maneuvers. He looked around nervously, as if afraid Alex might jump out from behind a bush. "I never thought I'd say this," he began cautiously, "but I think what you're doing is, important. It's about time someone stood up to her." I raised an eyebrow. "Important? I thought my little tractor parade might just be causing a scene." "People are actually talking," he said, his eyes flickering with excitement. "I've heard whispers from others on the board. Some of them are getting fed up with Alex's endless rules and arbitrary fines. She's lost control. You might be sparking something bigger than we imagined." His words hit me like a burst of sunlight after a long storm. It wasn't just about my tractor anymore. The community was waking up, and I had inadvertently become a catalyst for change. That evening, Jeb and I gathered on my porch, kicking back with a couple of beers, and discussed our next move. "You can't just stop now," he said, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "What you've started, this is your chance to really shake things up." I pondered this. Maybe it was time to escalate the situation further. I'm thinking, what if we start returning the other concrete blocks, one by one? Jeb cackled. "Oh, I like where this is going. Bring 'em back with style, huh?" Going to bed that night, I felt an unusual rush of adrenaline. Finally, I had a purpose, and I wasn't just a passive observer in the neighborhood drama. I was a player, but I had to be smart about it. I needed a plan. Over the next few days, while people worked through their own schedules and routines, I began preparations. I kept a close eye on the HOA office, waiting for Alex to make her next move. Each morning I checked the news, waiting for the spectacle to unfold, the tension in the air growing thicker with every passing day. One afternoon, I was outside, working on my beloved farm wall, when I noticed a group of neighbors gathering across the street. They were whispering and pointing toward my property. Curiosity piqued. I wiped my hands clean and strolled over. "What's going on?" I asked, noticing the concerned expressions they wore. "It's Alex," one neighbor said, looking a bit sheepish. "She's got a crew over at your house. Looks like they're trying to fix the mess with those concrete blocks." A storm of anger surged within me. Alex was going to try to cover her tracks. Not on my watch. "Who's with her?" "I think it's just her hired men," Greg answered. "They look like they're just trying to pour some cement and set the blocks in place more securely." That did it. I wouldn't let her manipulate the situation without a fight. I needed witnesses for whatever stunt she was pulling. Jeb and I jumped into action. We hopped into my truck, cracking jokes and laughing nervously on the way. The tension crackled like static electricity, and I could feel my heart racing. By the time we arrived, the workers had already began their job, sweat glistening on their brows as they lugged equipment around. I hopped out of the truck, ready for a confrontation. With my hands tucked into my pockets, I strolled over to where they were working. "What's going on here?" I called out. Alex turned around, her eyes narrowing in recognition. "Just making sure everything is tidy after your little stunt," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Looks like sabotage to me," I shot back, bitterness creeping into my tone. "You about to get yourself some new trouble." Before I could say more, I glanced at Jeb, who was pulling out his phone. "Getting evidence," he muttered, capturing every moment. "Huh, can't collar a man for trying to do right by the community," she squeaked, throwing her arms wide, a theatrical performance in full swing. "Right by the community?" I echoed incredulously. "You mean right by your vision of what you think this neighborhood should look like? Stand down, Alex." That's when the unexpected happened. One of the workers stepped off the curb and spoke up. "You know what? This whole thing looks like a circus to me." He glanced at the other guys, and they nodded in agreement. "Honestly, it's not worth our time. We've had enough of getting pulled into this mess." With that, they threw down their tools and started walking off the site, leaving Alex standing there stunned. "Wait, where do you think you're going?" she yelled, frustration spilling over. "You're supposed to finish this job." They turned back, defiance shining in their eyes. Not for someone who thinks she can bully others into submission. "We're out." And then they left, striding confidently away while Alex gaped, possibly realizing her power was eroding. Days turned into a cacophony of whispers as word spread about her losing crew and her failing grip on control. I felt a flicker of hope, but I knew this fight was far from over. That evening, as the sun dipped low, bathing everything in golden light, Jeb leaned back in his chair and said, "What's next? We can't let it stop here." And just like that, the next phase of my elaborate payback began to form in my mind. It was time to return the remaining concrete blocks, strategically and with flair, but I had to do it right. I couldn't let Alex gain the upper hand again. The thrill of battle surged through me as I plotted my next move, each decision charged with newfound ambition. Little did Alex know, I was just getting started. As my mind whirred with ideas, I outlined our next move. Returning the remaining concrete blocks needed a spark of flair, something that would draw eyes and ignite conversation. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about rallying the community and demonstrating that we wouldn't be pushed around anymore. The next day, Jeb and I met at my place after a long night of scheming. We gathered supplies, armed ourselves with laughter and defiance, and prepared for the spectacle. What if we dress up the blocks? Make them look like art installations? I suggested, a wild grin spreading across my face. Jeb's eyes lit up. "Oh, I love it. We can paint them, maybe throw in some signs. Make it clear this is about your rights as a homeowner." We spent hours painting the blocks in bright colors, neon green, vibrant orange, and bold blue, the kind of colors that scream for attention. Each block would be an artistic statement against Alex's oppressive reign. One would read, "Not your dollhouse," a nod to her controlling ways, while another would say, "Reclaiming our space," a powerful reminder that we were done with being silenced. On the day of our big reveal, I loaded the first block onto the tractor, the one that would officially kick off our series of returns. The plan was to break into the HOA's usual meeting time, when the entire neighborhood would be present to witness my artistic retribution. With Jeb by my side, we rolled out toward the HOA office, my heart pounding in my chest. Neighbors watched, confusion turning into curiosity, and I smiled wider, soaking in the growing excitement. When we arrived, the first block was the centerpiece, boldly positioned in front of the entrance. People were gathering, whispers swirled, and the crowd's energy shifted from skepticism to encouragement as they began snapping photos, capturing the moment of our stand together. Just as I was about to take a step back to savor the chaos, I spotted Alex's car pulling up. She emerged, fully adorned in her power suit, looking like a storm ready to unleash fury. Her eyes widened as they fell upon the spectacle before her, a vibrant assault on her carefully curated authority. What is the meaning of this? She charged toward us, her face flushed, clearly thrown off balance. Art, isn't it beautiful? I quipped, genuinely enjoying myself. She growled, this is ridiculous. You can't just deface community property. I gestured to the block, sparkling under the sun. Actually, this isn't about defacing. It's about reclaiming. We're taking back our voice. An unexpected round of applause erupted from the crowd. It surged through the air, a wave of support that caught even Alex off guard. Her expression faltered, and for the first time, confusion overran her facade of control. What do you think? Is it a visual blight? Or a statement? I challenged, smirking as I soaked in the moment. You're making a fool of yourself, she retaliated, but even her voice quivered with uncertainty. As she stomped away, I knew we'd hit a crucial nerve. This battle was becoming something bigger. It wasn't just me against Alex anymore. The community was standing with me, and it felt exhilarating. After the first block, we carried the next two ready for their turn under the spotlight. Each one was painted with humor and wisdom, sending a clear message that Alex's reign of aesthetic terror was coming to an end. The atmosphere charged with anticipation as more neighbors emerged, drawn by the commotion. They wanted to see what all the fuss was about, eager to witness the unfolding rebellion. Conversations erupted like fireworks, everyone discussing their own experiences with the HOA's iron grip. Jeb leaned in, a devilish glint in his eyes. Let's do it all in one day. Let's return every block today. My heart raced at the thought. You mean it? Absolutely. Let's make it a show. And with that, we piled onto the tractor, ready to make our rounds. Each stop became orchestrated chaos as we decorated the blocks, creating vibrant displays where once there had been drab barriers of concrete. At each house, neighbors cheered. They stepped out, clapping, encouraging the spectacle as we unloaded the blocks. I felt like a gladiator returning from battle, victorious and bold. The climax hit when we reached the HOA's office once more, the final block. It bore the message community over control. With a flourish, I roped it into place as Jeb handed out pieces of cake to the onlookers from a cooler we had hidden behind the tractor. Celebration time, he shouted, and laughter filled the air, a sweet antidote to the tension Alex had generated. Suddenly, Alex stormed out of the office, flanked by two board members, fury radiating off her. This is an outrage. You're going to regret this, she bellowed, the words clawing toward me like an angry beast. Regret? Hardly. I shot back, feeling the adrenaline spike. This is just the beginning. With that, I turned to the crowd, who erupted into cheers. Alex's face darkened, a mixture of rage and disbelief, and I could see the fabric of her power beginning to tear at the seams. But it wasn't just about her anger anymore. It was about community unity. They recognized the fight wasn't just for my tractor or my driveway. It was for every neighbor who had ever felt oppressed by Alex's reign. As the meeting wrapped up and the crowd began to disperse, I felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me. We had not just returned blocks. We had reclaimed our narrative, our community spirit, and begun to pave the road toward real change. And as we celebrated our small victory, I knew the war was far from over. Alex wouldn't go down quietly, but armed with newfound support and a truckload of determination, I was ready for whatever twist she would throw next. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting an enchanting glow over the neighborhood. The laughter of my neighbors echoed in the air, a sound so sweet and liberating it felt like music to my ears. We had achieved something extraordinary, but the exhilaration was mixed with a well-rooted understanding that the battle with Alex was far from over. The war had just begun. As I walked back toward my house, the thrill of what we'd done coursed through me, but I knew I had to stay vigilant. Just as the last remnants of sunlight faded, a text from Jeb buzzed my phone. Are you ready for the retaliation? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Of course, I knew she wouldn't take our defiance lying down. Alex had an unfair advantage, a relentless, scheming nature that had thwarted others for far too long. But now, She was not facing just one person. She was up against a collective spirit. Later that night, while gathering with friends in my backyard, we discussed our options. The atmosphere was a buoyant mix of celebration and strategy. "What's our next move?" one neighbor asked, holding a drink and eyeing the stars above. "We need to be prepared," I admitted, a wave of determination washing over me. "She's not going to give up easily." My friends nodded, each of us understanding that complacency was not an option. "Maybe we can organize a community meeting," Jeb suggested, his eyes ablaze with excitement. "Bring everyone together to discuss how we take things further. Maybe even vote on the next steps." The idea resonated with me. Bringing everyone together could strengthen our resolve and make our voices louder. "Yes, let's plan for that," I agreed. "Let's show her that we're done playing by her rules." In the following days, we whipped up flyers and spread the word across our little corner of the world. Excitement buzzed in the air as the meeting approached. Neighbors rallied together, sharing stories of their encounters with the HOA's absurdity, the punitive fines that left them feeling embattled, and the passion for reclaiming their community. The evening of the gathering arrived, and the community center was packed. I stood at the front, heart racing, as I looked out at the sea of faces eager to join this revolution. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice carrying above the chatter. "We've had enough. Together, we are stronger, and it's time to take our neighborhood back." The room erupted in applause, an electric wave coursing through us, a unified front ready to confront the dominance of the HOA. Ideas bounced around like popcorn, suggestions for community events, proposals for amendments, and voices of solidarity. Each person shared their experiences with frustration and determination, a tapestry of emotions weaving through the room. Then someone spoke up, one of the quieter neighbors from the back. "What if we organized a neighborhood festival? Something to foster community spirit. We could highlight what we love about our homes and celebrate our individuality. And at the same time, we could show Alex that we won't back down." The idea was met with enthusiastic cheers and fervent agreement. A festival would let our voices shine, promoting unity and joy while subtly rebuking the rigid standards Alex loved to impose. As the plan solidified, I caught sight of movement outside. A figure stood beneath the lamplight, observing us intently. My stomach twisted, knowing all too well who it was: Alex. Her arms were crossed tightly, her expression a mask of annoyance as she witnessed our gathering, the very resistance she sought to stifle. Seeing her there stoked the fire within me. This isn't just about blocks or fines anymore. It's about who we are as a community. I shouted, gesturing toward her, and she's going to have to realize that. The gathering crescendoed into a roaring commitment to organize the festival, a celebration that would let our voices be heard. Ideas spilled forth like an avalanche. Food trucks, local artists, games for kids, live music. This wouldn't just be a festival. This would be a statement. That night, we dispersed filled with renewed purpose, the festival firmly planted in our hearts. I knew Alex would react. I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind, concocting schemes to thwart us. But with every passing day, my resolve strengthened. As we prepared for the festival, we faced a barrage of emails from the HOA, complaints, threats to fine those who participated, appeals to traditional norms. Each time, we confronted them head-on, our solidarity strengthening our resolve. The festival day arrived, and the sun blazed high in the sky, illuminating our hard work. Neighbors began to flood the community center, excited faces everywhere. The atmosphere bubbled with joy and anticipation, laughter replacing the stranglehold of tension that had previously suffocated us. But even as we reveled in the festivities, I could feel Alex lurking in the shadows, her watchful gaze waiting for the first sign of weakness. But we were prepared, we were vigilant. And thus, as the music began and the festivities launched into full swing, I understood that this wasn't just a celebration, it was a declaration. A reminder that we were a community united, ready to reclaim our narrative, fight for our rights, and stand strong against anyone seeking to dictate our lives. Alex could scheme all she wanted, but today, we were not just homeowners. We were a force to be reckoned with. And in that moment, standing among my neighbors, I knew we had officially stepped into an era of transformation. The battle might escalate, but we were not backing down. As laughter engulfed me, I felt a profound sense of belonging. This was our neighborhood, and we were going to protect it, one spirited block at a time.